So regarding the session, we have 5 teams for presentation. The first team, one of the teams is from Delhi Technological University, along with their supervisor, Dr. Dinesh Kumar. Also, we have a team from SSN College of Engineering with their supervisor, Dr. Jawahar. Then we have 2 teams from SRM Katanklatur campus with their supervisors, Ms. Gayatri and Ms. Jyoti. Finally, we have a presentation from our very own campus under the guidance of Mr. Sabrinathan sir. So on behalf of the Department of CSE and also on behalf of the team RCICD 20, I extend a warm welcome to all of you. So I now request the first participant, that is ID number 8, Smart Mobile Personal Assistant, Deepshika Dinesh and Advita Singh, to share the presentation and start with the session.
Yes.
Madam, please mute the mic, those who are not speaking.
Yes, sir.
Good morning to everyone present here. This is Deepshika.
Good morning, everyone. This is Aditya here. We are from SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Katanklatur. And the topic for our research paper is Smart Mobile Personal Assistant. And the paper ID is 8. So let's start with the introduction first. So as we all know, we all are using smartphones nowadays. So smartphones are of very much help in our daily lives. We can do anything with our smartphones. We can talk to anyone. We can easily communicate with anyone. We can share details. We can use anything, and we can just in a single touch. Smartphones have changed our lives in very big manner. So that is the reason we took this topic to improve the smartphone variation with our personal needs. And the device we are using is currently working on Android. So majorly there are 2 softwares in the world. One is Android and second is iOS. But as the 80% of the world uses Android, so we have made this particular app which supports Android because it's so that it reaches out to a large number of users. The advantages for our research paper and the application we have built are, it is highly secured, and as it uses the fingerprint system, the biometric system, so only the person who has access to the device can use it. And so it is easy for, and the second one is any person can access this point particularly means like the person because nowadays all the phones which comes around the range of 10,000 also have included the biometric feature under them. So even the cheaper phones are getting the biometric security, and that is the reason our app is more secured because of this, and it is easily available to a lot of people. And the motivation the motivation we got for building this project will be shared by Deepshika.
Okay, so being a woman, being a female myself, I know the apprehensions that we have while moving out into the open, as in, the dangers that we might face, the situations that we might be stuck in. So our main crux of this application was to make something that can reduce the fear that women have of being alone outside. So one of the main features that we've included here is that we've increased the efficiency of the way the device sends out emergency locations or emergency messages to their selected contacts. Now, basically, what we've done is this is a feature that a lot many devices or a lot many applications do have in them already. But the only difference is that ours tries to reduce the time taken, as in as is given in the evaluation later, we have compared it with one of the most frequently used apps for sharing locations, and we've seen that the application developed by us increases the efficiency, that is reduces the time significantly to send out your location details to any person in case a lady is in any sort of danger. Not only a lady, we have taken the women in consideration since the crime rates against them have been increasing at an exponential rate. So we hope that, with further advancements in this application, there is a lot of work to be done to make it completely the ideal app. But we hope that with future advancements, we may be able to assist in some small way. We may be able to assist to reduce the crime rates in the country. Now, the literature survey, the main 3 points that we have included, that we have studied basically for making these apps, the first one is the fingerprint authentication for budget application. This is the most commonly used sensor application. Security is one of the main reasons why a lot of people, they may, move back from using technology for certain financial users. Now, it is not just normal viruses or a worm or maybe a Trojan that affects you. It can also be unethical hackers that may hack into your system or your account to steal your data or cause some transactions in your bank account which you may not have approved. So now, currently at present, a lot of banks have initialized some security measures, such as the facial biometric or maybe the palm, fingerprint, iris recall. All of these, they have been embedded in modern mobile devices and modern applications so that you can use them for authentication. Also, all mobile devices, as has been already said by my teammate, almost all devices right now have a fingerprint scanner so that the only person who can have access to all the data inside the phone has already been authenticated by the owner or is the owner himself. The second one that we used is an introduction to biometric authentication system. This, this was basically to understand how exactly the biometric authentication works. Now, this is 3 parts. The first one is the fingerprint image that is obtained. It need not always be perfect or up to the mark. So first, it is enhanced. That is, the smudges are reduced, the ridge line is thinned, all the filtering that is done in the first step. Secondly, to match it, as in we take some, if we have let us say a reference fingerprint, we take the fingerprint obtained right now and then we match it to see whether the fingerprint is identical or not. The last one is the simulation. That is, the simulation is the result that shows the effectiveness of the method. The third one that we have used is introduction to biometric recognition. Now, as said in the previous 2 points, a wide variety of systems, they require recognition of individuals to either confirm or determine the identity of the individual who is requesting their services. Now, the purpose of such schemes is to ensure that only the user that has already been authenticated is having access and no one else. For example, you have very high security buildings, you have computer systems, then the most commonly used are laptops, cell phones, ATM cards, etc. Now, since if you do not have all this, it is very easy for a system to be susceptible to attack imposter. So biometric recognition actually helps in reducing that. And here henceforth we'll be giving a brief overview of the biometrics and advantages, disadvantages, and all of the above. So now I would like Advitya to please speak about the methodology.
So the methodology of app is quite simple. First of all, we have a login and registration page. So a login page consists of 2 details: username and email, just as all the other apps. If the user hasn't registered till now, we have a separate registration page. For the link, the link is provided in the login page. When you press on it, a separate page for the registration opens up, and it has details like email, username, and password you want to create for your ID. Once the user has registered, then as soon as he opens the app again, then directly the welcome screen is open. He doesn't have to log in or register again. And the fingerprint which we have used are already stored in the device. As we get a new phone, the first thing we do for security lock is to add a fingerprint to the device database, and that is the fingerprint we are directly using. So all the person whose fingerprint have been registered on a particular device can access this app. And the fingerprint authentication and matching is done by Minuty algorithm. And methodology, as far as more concerns are done, we have a voice recognition button also present on a welcome screen, by pressing which you can open apps and speaking out the letters for the apps. For example, if you speak out YouTube, your YouTube opens up. For example, you speak WhatsApp, WhatsApp open ups. And we have included these opening applications also in the fingerprint. Like for a finger, we have a timer of 10 seconds, under which if you have presented 2 taps on the fingerprint, a particular app opens up, and on 3 tap, a particular app opens up. For this, we have also attached a number of taps for location sharing, as shared by Deepshika. So, like on the 4 taps, your location, the latitude and longitude that currently you are sitting on with the GPS location is shared to the emergency number, which has been fed in the registration details. So as soon as the timer of 10 seconds goes, the detail is shared to the emergency location, emergency number is entered by you at the registration page. And now we move on to the algorithm, which will be explained by Deepshika.
So the main algorithm that we'll be using for this application is the minute-based extraction and fingerprint recognition. Now, basically, a fingerprint is made of 2 things. One is the ridges, the second is the valleys. The ridges are basically all your curved lines which are present on the finger, and the valleys are the spaces or the depths between 2 ridges. So in the fingerprint that is shown on the screen, the dark lines, they represent the ridges, while the white spaces in the middle, they represent the valleys. Now for each fingerprint, the pattern of ridges and valleys together as well as individually is different. So the captured fingerprint, if any particular pattern or any particular valley in a fingerprint is different from that of the second fingerprint, it does not give any authentication. It proves the match to be a fail. Now this involves a lot of calculation, and there is a lot of search. So if we go on to compare each and every fingerprint, like print by print, the entire print as a mask, then it involves a lot of, it requires a lot of time and a lot of effort, because we have lots of fingerprints and a lot of points in each fingerprint. So we have gone in for minute-based extraction, which means instead of comparing the fingerprint as a whole, we only compare it point by point. As in one point, if we find out that point A does not match the corresponding point A in this fingerprint, then we can clearly say that those 2 fingerprints are not a match. Now, the template size of this kind of representation is very, very small. And so most of the fingerprint authentication systems right now, identification systems, have been based on this algorithm. Now, here I have given a small picture presenting the different areas of a finger. Like the ridge island is basically where one small ridge point is located in between the spaces between 2 ridges. Then you have a ridge ending. This is where the curved line finally ends. You have a ridge dot to be the tiniest ridge that is available in the finger. Then you have a ridge enclosure, which is Then you have a ridge enclosure, which is when a ridge completely engulfs a valley. Now the accuracy results here are extremely high, because since it is comparing each and every point, there is almost no chance of any failure. Also, instead of concentrating on matching a huge area, we go for point matching, as already told. And the second thing, that is, if we have an entire fingerprint with us, then it is very easy to forge that fingerprint. As in, it is not very difficult with the appropriate technology, of course. It is not very difficult to forge that fingerprint and create a clone or a duplicate. But here, since we are using points, it will be very, very difficult, extremely almost impossible, to create an entire fingerprint using just those tiny fragments. So it also helps in privacy issues, reducing the duplicacy, and in is also very stable and robust, as in it results really quickly. Now we go to the performance measure of evaluation, which will be explained by Advait.
So as we all know, ours is not the only app which has the location sharing option. There are many apps which help you to share your location instantly. So like one of the apps which everyone uses is WhatsApp, which is used for location sharing. Like if I ask for someone's location, it share the first thing that person will do is share it on WhatsApp. That's the basic application we use for sharing the location. So the question comes, why should we use our app? So the benefit of our app is the time for the location sharing. So we have compared a detail of, we have given a graph below. Can you please show it? Yeah, so this shows the time difference between the sharing of the location. So like our app takes 2/3 of the time of what WhatsApp takes. So approximately WhatsApp takes 21 seconds to share a location. First of all, you have to open your device, then you go on WhatsApp, you go to share location, then you have an option for sharing it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or like 1 hour, 1 day. So our app instantly shares the location by just tapping of 2 fingerprints. You don't have to open anything separately. Just 2 fingerprints in 10 seconds, our app will share. And the 10 seconds is, so our app has a time of 14 seconds, or in which 10 seconds is the timer of the number of taps on the fingerprint. So it becomes very fast. And in the case of any danger situation or any extreme situation, even 1 second is important. So that we have taken in consideration and made our app as fast as possible. So the conclusion will be shared by Deepshika.
Okay, so now the above slides, they've covered a lot of our project, and also a lot of the systems that are like currently in our present world, in the present case scenario, they are very efficient, but they do lack in accuracy. As in, it is, you cannot call them a perfect or a smart system. So now, why this happens is because most of the developers, they try to make a new app altogether without like imbibing new features, but they do not actually, inculcate or amalgamate any of the features that the old applications have. That is what we have tried to mitigate. That is the error that we have tried to mitigate. As in, we have taken ideas from the already existing apps, from lot of papers that we referred, and then we have tried to fit it into the present case scenario. Now, also there is still a lot of work to be done in the application. For example, like some of the work is given here. The first one would be to prevent the repeated login into the app. As in, every time you open the app, you will have to log in once till you go, like log out, or till you maybe log the phone if you kept that setting. The second is increase the variety of gestures recognized. Like currently, we only fix the app on certain number of taps, but we would also, it would also be better if we could increase it maybe on the duration of the time that you keep on the sensor, or how you move your finger through the sensor. If it is an upward motion, how what is that, what response does that instigate? If it is a downward, what response does that give you? And if this app is incorporated into the operating system of the devices, then the response time will increase significantly and it will increase efficiency. As in right now, the main feature of our app is the movement safety measure. So right now, to set your location, you'll have to first go into the app and then tap the sensor 3 times. But if it is already incorporated into the operating system in the Android system itself, just tap on the sensor. Even if it is locked, it doesn't matter. It immediately sends your location to the emergency contact. The last feature which we have thought of adding maybe later is which tells us which of our emergency contacts, like currently we get the emergency contacts get to know our location, but if possible we would also like to get to know which of our emergency contacts is closer to us, so that we can at least send them a different text, or maybe call them so that they can arrive at the scene of need immediately. Now these are some of the references that we have referred to for making our project and making the paper. And in the annexure, we have given some of the interfaces that are present in our app. So the first one is the login
Excuse
page.
me, sorry for the interruption. We are running
Yes,
out of time. Like, I request all the participants to restrict your timings to 8 minutes, presentation timings to 8 minutes, followed by a questionnaire session for 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, so please stick on to the timings. You have exceeded the timing.
Okay, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
that's the last
Can we
part.
go ahead with the questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Deepshika and Advitya Singh.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Your presentation as a whole was good. You had a good confidence on what you're presenting. But what is this? See, what you have explained, it is all present in your smart mobile, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So how is that different from your, that is your innovation different from what is existing in the mobiles? Only the accuracy difference you said about the time in getting your location.
Aditya, would you like to go forward or may I?
Yeah. You go forward.
So, ma'am, here what we are trying to is like currently the application the location sharing is obviously one of the features that is involved, but and the voice is also already present, but the fingerprint gesture is not present on all the phones. As in, every phone has a limited number of gestures that it can, inculcate into its own smartphone. Like, as in the smartphone that I am using, they have 5 alphabets which can open up different apps, and then you have the emergency lock feature. That is the only feature that is available. What we are trying is, instead of just the 5 alphabets, instead of having to remember which alphabet stands for what, we have a margin of 10 apps that we frequently access, and then we can adjust them to different gestures. And then we are basically trying to add on to the features that is provided by the Android.
Okay.
Yeah, suppose I'll just like to add one thing. Ma'am, supposedly, like, you have a device with a lock, with a pattern lock, and like the device Deepshika is talking about, like drawing a W on the screen would open up WhatsApp. So if anyone knows your pattern, then with a W he can open up your WhatsApp. So that becomes quite easy. But what this app does is, you can only open app if you have a fingerprint registered on the device. So that becomes more secure, because the person who owns the particular device would only have the fingerprint of his choice on the device. That is the reason. Yes,
I understand that. And what is another emergency location, emergency situation at which you want to send an emergency number? That is what another application which you felt like protection of women, as Deepshika said.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
What do you actually mean by protection against women by giving a location? Can you please clarify on that, Deepshika?
Yeah, ma'am, many times what happens is, the lady, she might want to share, like, if she's in danger, the phone is the first thing that comes to our mind whenever we're in a dangerous situation, to contact any of our near dear ones. So often what we have to do is, if, let us say, if a lady is in danger, then the first thing that she has to do is unlock the phone, go to the emergency contact and send it. Or like, currently in the phone that I use, you have a really fast feature that gives you that sends the location in about 9 seconds. It sends the location by just pressing the lock button 3 times. It sends the location in 9 seconds. Now that is because it has already been incorporated into the OS. Our system, if it is already incorporated into the Android, it will send it even faster. As in, all you have to do is just 3
See,
taps.
how does the 1 second, Deepshika, how does the mobile understand that you are in a panic situation?
Ma'am, the mobile won't understand. We'll have to give it the number of taps.
Yeah,
we'll
but I think there you can have an interface with your mobile. Suppose you have some sensors being fitted into you, that sensors can help you to detect the panic situation, and that can initiate your mobile on sending emergency numbers. That could have been a little more better, I feel.
Yes,
right? Did you get Deepshika?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am, it is true. If it can detect our pulse, if it can detect the quickening of the pulse or something.
Pulse, your temperature, your beat, etc. There are a number of sensors you can use. That is, all those sensors integrated to your mobile. I think it will work more faster.
It will work better.
It will be I think that will be a bit more clarity you can get for your product. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for that suggestion.
All the best, Deepshika and Advaita.
Thank you, ma'am, for the suggestion.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Golda, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So can we have the next batch from Assistant College of Engineering? Design of quantum gates for arithmetic and logic circuits. Paper ID 14. Can we have Vanita Veni?
Yes, ma'am.
Along with Professor Dr. A. Jawahar. Yeah, please share your presentation. Please restrict your timings to 8 minutes. give the presentation for 8 minutes, and after that you will have a questionnaire session for 4 to 5 minutes. So kindly stick on to the timings. Yes, Vanita. Are you there? Is Vanita Veni available online?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any issues in sharing the presentation?
No, ma'am. I can share.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Here, my topic is about design of quantum gates for arithmetic and logic circuits. My main objective to design the reversible logic gates using the CMOS logic method. To design the arithmetic circuits like adders, subtractors, and multipliers by using the reversible logic gates. While using these adders and the subtractors, I am going to use to implement the array multipliers and with the reversible logic gates. And I have to compare the power consumption for the reversible logic gates circuits I have implemented, and I have to compare their power with the conventional logic circuits. Introduction. In VLSI design systems, the main problem is in power dissipations. So we have to control that power dissipation. I have go with an reversible logic gates because the reversible logic gates have the ability to reduce the power dissipation. The reversible logic gates must have the unique output vector that produces from the each input of the vector. The reversible logic gates have the same number of input and the same number of outputs. It has to mainly designed by the two types. The two types are logical reversibility and physical reversibility. The logic reversibility is nothing about the input and the output must be uniquely retireable from the each other. The physical reversibility means the system must run backwards. These reversible logic gates are found in many applications. The applications are CMOS low power design, in quantum computing, digital design, and image processing, and so on. The motivation. In conventional logic gate, it dissipates more heat. It loses the information in lots of bits, so it dissipates so much power. But the conventional logic gates, it saves the information in the form of bits, and it dissipates the less power when compared to the conventional logic gates. So the reversible logic gate dissipates the less heat. So I went to this project. Literature survey. A survey on the reversible logic gates. Here, so many researchers have implemented so many reversible logic gates like Feynman, BJN, Pierce, Frederick, and NEFT and NG gates. By using these gates, we can implement the convolutional logic gates. It will reduce the complexity and it dissipates the low power and it improves the high speed. In this survey, the design of reversible logic basic combinational circuits. Here the authors that designed the irreversible logic gates are implemented by using the reversible logic gates. Here the reversible logic gates they have used this C-NOT gate and Frederick gate, NOT gate, Toffoli, Pierce, and double Feynman and NG gates. Here the author designed so many combinational circuits by using the reversible gates. They have implemented in Xilinx 14 tool and they have implemented in Saturn 3 FPGA kit. Reversible logic gates, here I have used the Feynman gate and the Toffoli gate. These two gates I have implemented by using the CMOS logic method. The CMOS logic method consists of pull-up network and pull-down network. The Feynman gate I have implemented by using an XOR gate. It can consist of 15 transistors to implement this gate. The Toffoli gate I have implemented by using the CMOS logic method. It has required the 20 transistors to implement this gate. I have implemented this reversible logic gate by using the Cadence tool at 180 nanometers technologies. Here I have implemented the Feynman gate. This is the schematic of the Feynman gate and the stimulated output for the Feynman gate. When we're giving the zeros to the input A and B, we're applying to the 0 0, we'll get the output 0 0. Here this stimulated output for the Feynman gate. I have implemented the Toffoli gate in Cadence. It requires the 20 transistor to implement it and has applied the voltage at 1.8 voltage. We need to apply up to the 3.3 voltage to in Cadence, but it is enough to apply the 1.8 voltage here. I have implemented the half adder by using the Toffoli gate and Feynman gate. The Toffoli gate, the third input, I have grounded the zero, then it will be get the sum. It will be get the carry and the AB. The Feynman gate will be get the sum. The full adder I have implemented, it consists of two Toffoli gate and two Feynman gate. The half subtractor I have implemented the Toffoli gate and Feynman gate. I have liquidated the NOT gate. The NOT gate is also called as a reversible gate because it has one input and one output. It can be uniquely retrievable from the output to the input. The full subtractor I have implemented by using the two Toffoli gates and two Feynman gates and two NOT gates. Here the schematic output for the full subtractor. The 2-bit array multiplier I have implemented by using the adders because the adders and subtractors are the basic building blocks to design any combinational circuits. By using the array multiplier, I have used the Toffoli gate as an AND gate. While using that, I have implemented the half adders by connecting the AND gate. So I have implemented the array multiplier by using it. It needs often 4 Toffoli gates. The 4 Toffoli gates act as an often AND gate, and the 2 half adders are connected to it. And the simulated output for 2-bit array multiplier. The 3-bit array multiplier I have implemented by using the 9 Toffoli gates can act as an often AND gate. It requires the 4 half adders and 2 full adders to implement the 3-bit array multiplier. Here I have the power analysis. Adders and subtractors, I have compared the power analysis, but it's given the same power analysis for the reversible logic circuits and the convolutional logic circuits. When we are analyzing our designs, I have constructed the 2-bit array multiplier. Here I will check the power analysis for the reversible and logical gates. There is large differences for the convolutional logic gates. The reversible logic gates gives a less power dissipation when compared to the convolution gates. Here I have to give the conclusion. Here I have designed the array multiplier and implemented in Cadence nanotechnologies. Because the reversible logic gates gives the very less power dissipation when compared to the convolutional logic gates. When we are constructing the two blocks, where two blocks, the power in the convolutional logic gates and the reversible logic gates is same. When we are enlarging the design, the reversible logic gates gives the less power when compared to the convolutional logic gates. Future work. The reversible logic gates plays an important role in design of the energy efficient circuits. It saves more energies and it has great efficiency in reducing the complexities in digital circuits. In future, by using these gates, we can design the various types of multipliers like Vedic multiplier, booth multiplier, Wallace tree, as well as we can implement the various types of combinational and sequential circuits.
Your
Here I
time is
go
up.
through the differences.
Yeah, I think your time is up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Vanita Vini,
Yes, ma'am.
your discussion on quantum gates or the reversible logic gates was
Yes, ma'am.
very clear. One thing which I would like to ask you is, with what material are you building up these quantum gates?
Ma'am?
How are these quantum gates made of?
By using these reversible gates, ma'am. Already so many
Reversible gates?
authors have implemented. Reversible gates is called as quantum gates, ma'am.
Yeah, I understand. How are these quantum gates being made? Did you get my question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, how are these quantum gates being built up? How is it different from your conventional gates?
Ma'am, conventional gates have many inputs and it has one output, or many outputs or it has one output. In reversible gates, they have made up with the equal number of inputs and outputs. So we can retrieve our information from output to the input or input to the output. So that's why they have made up the reversible logic gates.
Okay. Where do you find application of these quantum gates now?
We can see in quantum computing, ma'am.
Quantum computing. So which gives you an application where you have lesser power dissipation. Only that is an advantage of your quantum gates. That in that
Yes, ma'am,
area
it
only
gives
you have
less-
worked, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Can you give any other advantage which is when compared to other gates as such, or which makes quantum gates high?
Or we can gather the information from output to input. We can retrieve it, and we can backward the system also. And it gives less power. It can reduces the complexity. It improves the speed, ma'am.
It improves the speed. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What about your terahertz optical asymmetric demultiplexers? Have you heard of TOAD, which has been built up with this Toffel gate as well as a Feynman gate?
No, ma'am. Anna, but we can try to implement by using the gates, ma'am.
You can implement using this. Why you have gone in for the Stoffel gate and Feynman gate?
Because the two gates are suitable to implement the adders and subtractors, ma'am. By using that, we can. I'm going to implement the array multiplied, so that have I used the Toffoli and Feynman gate, ma'am.
Okay. Why did you prefer for these two gates? That's my question.
Because these two gates are suitable to implement the adders, ma'am.
Okay. No other gates available for implementing this?
There are so many gates, ma'am. Before that, so many authors were used so many gates, ma'am. That's why I have chosen to Toffoli and Feynman gate to use it to implement, ma'am.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. So I call upon the next participant. It's a 4-member team from Delhi Technological University. They will be presenting on image captioning using independently recurrent neural network. So can we have Subhang Verma, Sukriti Rampal, Sparsh Gupta, along with the Professor Dr. Dinesh Kumar?
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, yes.
Visible?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll be presenting the screen. Ma'am, is the screen visible to all?
Yeah.
You are visible. Yes, you can start.
Okay,
Please
ma'am. So
restrict your presentation to 8 minutes. We are running short of time.
okay. I'll definitely try.
Yes.
So, hello everyone. I am Subhang Verma from Delhi Technological University, and I'm the co-author of the paper titled Image Captioning Using INDARNN, along with my fellow co-authors, Ms. Sukriti Rampal and Mr. Sparsh Gupta, on which we have worked under the guidance of our respected professor, Dr. Dinesh Kumar Vishwakarma. Let's start with the presentation. So, basically, our problem statement is neural image caption or image captioning. The task is basically that we are given an image and then we have to describe the content of image using a sentence or a sequence of words. For example, this is the image, and then when we will send this image to our model, it will produce a textual output like a baby is asleep next to a teddy bear or the girl is sleeping with a teddy bear. So basically, we have to maximize the probability of producing a sentence given image as an input.
Shubhang, I think presentation is not visible.
So,
Ma'am, are you able to see the presentation?
No. Have you
Just share the
started
screen.
presenting? Yeah, you please share the screen. The option is
Shubhang,
right down.
Share the screen.
okay, wait a minute.
There is an option down, right down, to share your presentation. Yes. Now we can see your screen. It's visible. Go ahead.
Okay, is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So shall I start?
Yes.
Yeah. Start.
Yeah. So basically, our title or the problem statement of our research area is neural image caption or image captioning. So basically, the task is that we are given an image and then we have to generate a sequence of word or sentences that best describes the image. For example, if we are given this image, then our model should draw out the inference or produce the sentence, such as the baby is asleep next to a teddy bear, or this girl is sleeping with a teddy bear. So basically, this task is very useful in use cases such as in social medias, where the social media platforms use this model to derive the contents of the image for their analysis, as well as we can use this model for helping blind people, like that we can use this model to implement using a camera that it can determine the contents of the surroundings, and then we can convert it using text to speech to give hints about the surrounding to the blind people. Moreover, in if we can the future cases, like we can use this model in self-driving cars also, but that there's a lot of work has to be done in that field. So our model or the research work draws its roots from the neural machine translation task. So basically, in neural machine translation, we are given a source language and we have to produce a target language using an encoder decoder architecture. So the encoder and decoder makes use of RNN, and the task of the encoder is used to transform us the source language into a fixed length vector, which is given as the initial hidden state to the decoder, which generates the target sequence finally. So basically, the encoder decoder architecture is using RNN is good for sequence to sequence sorting tasks, but in our domain, we have used image as an input. So we have replaced the RNN in encoder with the CNN, because the CNN is supposed to work better on the images to extract the information because of the convolving operation involved in it. Moreover, in the decoder, we have replaced the RNN with a new advanced kind of RNN architecture called the ndRNN, and I'll be introducing that in the later sections. So let's move on to the next slide. So basically, the previous works that have been done in this image capturing field is most significantly by Show and Tell by Vinals et al., in which they use a encoder decoder architecture with encoder made up of GoogleNet CNN, and the decoder phase was implemented using LSTM. Similar method was adopted in caption research paper, in which they replaced the decoder with BiLSTMs to get the better results. A much more robust approach was adopted in attention-based in show, attend, and tell paper, in which they use the then attention-based architecture, in which they use the probability and the deterministic-based attention architecture for generating caption. So this is the proposed encoder decoder architecture for image caching. They give the image as an input to the inception before CNN encoder. The task of the encoder is that it converts the image into a fixed vector, which is given as the initial state to the ndRNN. Now the ndRNN starts generating captions at each timestamp, and at each timestamp that output is given as hidden state to the next timestamp, and this goes on until the end of sequence token is encountered. So after the end of sequence token is encountered, our sentence is generated. So basically, we have built our model on 8K and 30K dataset. We have trained our model on 20 epochs, batch size 64, using Adam Optimizer. Now, the working of algorithm behind our proposed encoder architecture is that it has two phases, training and inference. During the training phase, our encoder architecture makes use of transfer learning through inception before CNN model. So basically the aim of our training period that we want to maximize the probability of occurrence of a word given we have a caption as input and hidden state of the previous timestamp. And basically we want to minimize the loss function, which is calculated as negative likelihood of the generated target. And basically what happens is that at each timestamp we are generating, at each epoch we are generating words for each timestamp, and at every epoch a loss function or error is calculated, which is propagated backwards until the probabilities are then changed for each output word, and this goes on until we minimize the loss function. So now we come to the inference phase, in which fixed embedded vector representation of the input image created by the encoder is passed to the decoder as initial input, and along with that we pass the start token. Now the output is produced at each timestamp at each ndRNN cell, and the output is passed as an hidden state to the next timestamp, and this goes on until the end of sequence token is encountered. So the working is basically like RNN, but the advanced approach is used in RNN, which I'll be discussing later. So our proposed decoder architecture is composed of 6 layers of IndRNN. So let's move on to the independently recurrent neural networks or IndRNN. This is the main idea or the basic or the central idea that is behind our research paper. While we were collecting our problem statement, we were exploring various methodologies and various approaches that could basically implement in our model, because of the work that has been done in the field of image captioning has either been through RNN or LSTM or a combination of them. But what happens that RNN suffers from exploding and vanishing gradient problems, and LSTM suffers from gradient decay because of the use of sigmoid and tanh functions in it. So in vanishing gradient, what happens is that because the gradients that come from deeper layer to the earlier layers, it goes through it goes through the continuous matrix multiplication because of the chain rule. As a result of which the gradient may fall to very less than one, and it may vanish exponentially, which results in our model not able to learn well. So basically, this is what we do want in our model, and this is not suitable for if we want to generate large captions. Moreover, in exploding gradient, what happens is that the gradient values may turn very large, and they may be greater than one, and it eventually will explode and blow up. So while studying the research papers for RNN, which recently introduced in 2018 and 2019, found that in RNN does not suffer from that vanishing and exploding related problem, and it has few characteristics which we can implement and incorporate in our model, like the neurons in the same layers are independent across each other, and moreover, it can process much longer sequences as compared to the existing RNN and LSTM models. It can also work with the non-saturated activation functions such as values, and multiple IndRNNs can be stacked together to construct a much more deeper. Now, after training the model on Flickr 8K and 30K dataset, we have used value metric as an evaluation metric, which fits nicely with the human evaluation. These are the value 1, 2, 3, 4 scores for the Flickr 8K and Flickr 30K datasets. And these scores are better than those models that have used LSTMs and RNNs on the decoder. Now let's coming on to the conclusion. In this paper, we have basically in our model we have implemented 6 layers of stacked IndRNN, which has not been earlier in the field of image captioning. Aim or the basic motive was to reduce the complexities that were present in RNN and LSTM, and to use a much more advanced RNN structure for the IndRNN. In the work is continuously growing, and it is being more explored. And now in future we aim to use attention mechanisms in our model, and basically we have trained our model on Flickr 8K and Flickr 30K dataset, but we would train our model on MS dataset, which is a much more dataset as compared to 8K and 30K dataset. So this is how we'll expand our model. And with this, I would like to end our presentation, and I would like to thanks to each and every member for allowing us to present our presentation and this. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, Shubhank Verma.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good presentation.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
The one thing which I would like to clarify from your thing is, what is the platform on which you have worked? Was it Python?
Yes, ma'am. We have worked in Python.
You worked on Python. Okay.
And we built our model in Keras.
Pardon me, I didn't get you.
We have built our model in Keras and Python.
Keras and Python. Okay. Now, why did you go in for an RNN network?
Ma'am, because RNN is suitable for sequence-to-sequence translation task, and this our problem statement has the rule of sequence-to-sequence modeling, because in it the captions are generated, which are basically solved by sequence-to-sequence modeling task, and for that RNN are much more suitable, because RNN have the ability to capture details from the previous hidden timestamps. So suppose there is a word which is dependent on some previous word, like the sentence is like, I live in France and I like to speak French. So here France and French are related. So basically, at each hidden layer, we are passing the information, we want the information.
And why have you restricted yours to 6 layers? 6 hidden layers. You've
And we have
restricted to
because we need much more layers if the length of the generated captions are more. But basically, the maximum length in our model was 50 words per caption. So basically, for that we don't need to go to much high layers, because when we tried to build our model for 8 layers, it was taking much time, and the results were almost the same.
How many test images did you use?
Sorry, ma'am. So basically,
How many?
Yes, ma'am. So we use Flickr 8K dataset, which has about 8,000 images with 5 captions, along with Flickr 30K dataset, which has 30,000 images with 5 caption each. And each dataset image size dataset image size is 1 GB and 4 GB respectively.
Okay. Now for validation, you have used 30,000 data sets as such from that. And for validation, how many data sets have you used? And output with how many data sets have you checked? Do you have any images as such shown?
Actually, okay. So the second slide you saw, there was an image of a girl.
Yeah, I saw a baby.
Yeah. So yeah, that was from the project only. So the validation set size was 1,000 for Flickr 8K as well as Flickr 30K, and we used 1,000 images for the testing part.
Oh, 1,000 for testing and the 1,000 for validation also you have used.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the only image you have done. You have any other examples to show?
As of now, for this presentation, we don't have, but we'll be pleased to show you if you want. That is not a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Subha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Fine. Okay, so next can we have the fourth team from SRM Katan Pratur campus, paper ID 56. So they will be presenting on support system for creating SQL queries using natural language. So can we have Mumuksha Pant, Vinayaka Mishra along with their Professor Jyoti?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Again, a gentle reminder to stick on to the timings, please. So those who have finished, kindly don't leave the session. We would like to have a live photo session at the end, along with your professor, session chair, and our HOD. So please stay on for that.
Is the PPT visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning to all the panel members.
Why don't you put it into the slideshow? Put it into the slideshow.
Press F5. Go to slideshow.
Now is it better?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Good morning to all the panel members. My name is Mumuksha Pant.
And I am Vinayak Mishra.
We are from SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Katan Kolathur. Our topic is support system for creating SQL query using natural language. Now, data is everywhere, but the main problem that we have is to access that data, especially for a person who wants to access the information in the database and he does not have the required skills or the required knowledge of the database management systems. One typical approach to get the data from the internet is the keyword based approach, which the Google uses, but it does not understand exactly what the user is asking. So this is one main reason why we're using the natural language processing approach. Now, these days, everybody has their personal devices. And like I told you, most of the information is in the database. But people who have a very less knowledge or very little knowledge of the database language have faced difficulties in extracting the database, the values of the database from the system. So that is the reason why we have created this system. We have created a system where first the user logs into the system and there's a search bar where he can enter his query. Once he enters his query, for example, he enters that what is the price of Alto in 2016. This query is processed in this question is processed through various parts, which are tokenization, lemmatization, parts of speech tagging, parsing, and mapping. Then he gets the required SQL query, and from that SQL query, he gets the answer from the database. So what happens is the first step is tokenization. In tokenization, the whole input is divided into tokens, which means if I enter what was the price of Alto in 2016, so it is divided into different parts. What would be one part, would be one part, price would be other part, and so on. The next step is lemmatization. Lemmatization means to extract the base word. For example, if I enter given, giving, and gave, all of these basically mean the same thing, which means to give. Similarly, if I enter cars or car, all of that mean the same thing, which is car. This is done through lemmatization. We use this step so that the result is more accurate. The third thing that we have is parts of speech tagging. Parts of speech tagging is basically where the query is divided into nouns and verbs and pronouns. This is just to increase the efficiency and just to increase the rate at which it finds the data from the table. We also use regular expression, where regular expression is used just to detect a pattern. For example, usually when any user would be entering the text, normally the input would be what or where or when. Normally the input, his query would start from what or where or when or something like this. Then he would use some very frequent keywords, like he would like to extract the price or the color or the model number. This all is done using regular expression. Then attribute identification and mapping is done. There are a lot of keywords, like in my sentence, what is the price of Alto in 2016? One attribute, price, Alto, and 2016. All of these would be matching to our table. Our table would be containing some of these informations. So suppose we have a table called cars, and there is a column called price, car name, and the year of manufacture. So these would be compared to the table using mapping function. Then this is the literature survey. We had referred to 4-5 of the research papers and some existing data. So one was by Woods, the other was by Akshay and his team. The third one was by Hendricks. The fourth one was by Prasoon Kanti, and the fifth one was by Javobar. This is our system architecture. Like I explained, there is a user who logs into the system. This would be our user interface. When he enters his question, the input goes through various phases, which is tokenization, lemmatization, syntactic analysis. Part of speech is basically a part of syntactic analysis. And then the attribute, the parsing and the chunking, which is again a part of tokenization. From this, attribute identification in the table, and then the query is formed. Then it is extracted from the database and the output is showed to the user. Now my co-partner Vinayak will take you through evaluation part and the conclusion and the risks that are involved.
Good morning to all the panel members. Yes, the first part of our evaluation is the cost estimation. We use the COCOMO model to estimate the cost, the effort, the development time, the average staff size required to complete this project. So based on the COCOMO table, our project was an organic project. That means it was fairly small and it required a fairly small team size. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the effort estimation, and we estimated that it would require almost 4 man-months to complete this project. Next slide. Yeah, this is the average staff size, and it came out to be to complete this project in 4 months. It would require only one person, even though we're a team of 2 people. Next slide, please. This is the productivity, and this is the formula for productivity. Next slide, please. This is the risk analysis. The first risk that we pose to our system is a DBMS attack. As you've seen, the project will have to do with SQL database. That user will enter the query and it will interact with the SQL database. And all the papers that we referred to, some of them had a web interface to access the database, but none of them specified any safety for the database, because any DBMS-based application is always susceptible to malicious activities by hackers. So we made sure that we protect our database against any SQL injection, buffer overflows, or any backdoor entries that anyone might try, because in a database application, it's very easy. So second risk that is posed to our application is insufficient training to the machine. As it's an AI-based project, and insufficient training to the machine will eventually result in incorrect output to the user. So to make sure the user is getting the correct output and is satisfied with what he is trying to get, we have to make sure that the machine is properly trained, not overtrained or not undertrained. We have to make sure that the output is right in the middle. Next slide, please. Yeah, one problem with our database is that our project is that it cannot deal with very large databases. It cannot deal with a database with 4 or 5 tables that connected to each other using foreign keys and etc. So it works on fairly small databases with a single or 2 tables as of now. But in future, we'll try to increase the number of tables that it can manipulate. And presence of redundant database values, this is critical, because redundant data will certainly decrease the overall performance of the system. So we have to make sure that there's no redundant data, and all the data is properly sanitized and it's properly cleansed. Next slide. Yeah, and we are actually in the training phase of our project, and we have used as of now 2,800, almost 2,2880 queries to train our project. We asked our friends and family members to write down questions about that they would be asking a car salesman or a car dealership person about cars.
I think I've exceeded the time limit. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll come to conclusion. So there are various technologies that there are to manipulate database, but natural language processing is the future of it. And in next slide, please. And in future, we'll try to use a speech format, and we'll try to increase the number of tables that it can manipulate. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Vinayak Mishra and Mumuksh Sharpan.
Yes, ma'am.
You have tried to implement it using which language? Only one language, or you have tried it with how many different languages?
Python. We used Python.
You use Python. Okay. And in that, you tried to. Why did you go for Python?
Should I answer this? Or
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, Python has a very good library known as the NLTK library, Natural Language Toolkit. That has been that has made this very easy to implement this project.
Okay. How do you grade your project when comparing it with the innovations? What's the new innovation you have put into this project?
Yes, ma'am, the main innovation is that we have tried to make it usable. This technology has been used, but it's not in commercial use as of now. Like the biggest search engine is Google, but it still uses a keyword-based approach and not a natural language-based approach. So
Yeah.
we are trying to commercialize this project. Like we are trying to make, like as of now, we're trying to make a car search engine website where you can search different details about different automobiles and different vehicles, and with slight modification, this can be made about a lot of different things. We can make this about books. We can make, and if more people come into this project, if it's
Pardon me. I didn't get you. Your voice seems to break.
Sorry, ma'am. So we're trying to commercialize this project. It's not in commercial use as of now. The industry is still
How can
using.
it overcome your Google search engine?
Ma'am, it has
Other than your natural language processing, other than this NLP.
Sorry, ma'am. Can you repeat that?
How can you make your project more better than your Google search engine?
Yes, ma'am.
What are the initiatives you have to do?
Ma'am, the main thing is that Google uses a keyword-based approach. So
Yeah.
if you're searching something like what is the area with
Okay. Yours you're doing with NLP.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And why restricting it to a car, commercializing the car area? Why not implement everything in one session? Do you find difficulty in that?
Yes, ma'am. That is a very difficult, because that would be a very difficult. That would not be an impossible task, but that would require a bigger manforce, a bigger time period, and it is certainly doable. And this is first step of maybe reaching to that position. Expanding this.
Also, ma'am, because it would be a very complex system, and the main drawback that we are facing in our system is that it does not work on distributed tables for now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So can we have the last paper, ID number 93, Biometric Attendance System Using Fingerprint for Smartphone, by Shaktivel and Sabrinathan sir from SRM IST Vadapalani campus.
Am I audible?
Yes, Shaktivel.
Yes, ma'am. So can I proceed, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah, proceed.
Share your presentation. Please stick on to the timings, please.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. I'll just
8 minutes. 8 minutes for your presentation.
I'm just sharing the PPT, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I'll have to change the browser if you allow me. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
I'll have to change the browser, ma'am. The Firefox is not actually allowing me to use it. Can I just quit the meeting and join in Chrome?
Yeah, fine. Let's not waste a lot of time. We are running short of time.
Sure, ma'am. Just 1 second.
Hello, Shaktivel. Shall I share the presentation? I have your presentation with me. Hello.
Is the PPT visible? Is my screen visible, ma'am?
If you have any difficulties in sharing, I have your presentation with me. I can share and we can do the presentation part.
Am I audible, ma'am?
You are audible, but then your presentation. you're
It's not
unable to
visible.
share, I'll share it from my side.
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
Shall I share it?
Yes, ma'am. I'll just try it once more. Is it visible now?
Yeah. Yes. Fine. Go ahead.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Please start first. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning to one and all present here. I'm Shakti Vel. My title is Biometric Attendance System using Fingerprint for Smartphone. So to start with this, we know that it's essential to keep records of attendance in school and universities. And there's been a lot of improvements in classrooms such as e-learning and smart classrooms. But one thing that has been still followed in many universities is the manual attendance system. Each and every faculty has to call out every student in every class for every hour to take attendance. And this is not only time consuming, but also leads to a lot of confusion since it's done manually. So there's been a system proposed using biometrics to automate this process. And the motivation to do this is to reduce the amount of time and the paper consumed in this process, and also to increase the interaction between the student and the faculty more than just taking attendance, and also to give back to the education system besides China. So there has been a lot of other ideas proposed in this system. The main one and the simplest one would be mobile application-based attendance, where an application is just used to take attendance instead of using paper. So the disadvantage is that still a faculty member has to operate the mobile to take attendance. Talking about NFC, it is an advanced technology which is used in many developed countries, but the working is the implementation of an NFC chip inside the ID card, where the student can just tap their ID card and mark themselves present. But the main disadvantage is the student can also share the ID card with their friends and mark attendance for other people, so it's not completely secure. The use of QR code has also been implemented in a university in China, where the professor will generate the QR code on the projector, and the students can scan the QR code with the smartphones. But implementing it here is a bit difficult because students are not allowed to use their smartphones in the classroom. And moreover, this QR code can be taken as a picture and be shared to people who are not actually present in the room. So again, this is not very secure. So even the use of face recognition has been implemented, but actual implementation in the university will require about 1,000 data set of each and every student as a minimum test case for implementing this process. So in a university of 1,000 students, it may not be practically possible to implement the whole process due to the cost of the processors and the cameras. And finally, there's been a idea proposed to use fingerprints using IoT. Fingerprints are very efficient as they are the simplest biometric and also uniquely identifies each and every person. The use of IoT components has made the device portable, but at the same time, the semiconductor materials will be worn out soon. So they have to be replaced frequently. And this being a standalone device has to be connected to a PC or a mobile to share the data from the device. So it causes a lot of Wi-Fi connectivity issues, and also the paper has stated that the fingerprint accuracy is not 100%. Considering all the advantages and the disadvantages, biometric attendance system has been proposed. So this is the architecture diagram of the proposed system, where the two main actors are faculty and the student. So the faculty actually has to log into the application before the student can use it, so that there's no misuse of the application apart from the school hours. So the student can use the application for registering and marking attendance. Registering will involve them to I can hear some noise. I'll just continue. Okay, the register activity where the student can input all their data and the fingerprint and store it to a database. And in the case of mark attendance, where the student can go into the classroom and then enter their details, and then the fingerprint will be evaluated with the existing fingerprint in the database. And if it matches, then it will be said as mark attendance. And if it's not matched, it will say it is not marked. So these accepted fingerprints will be taken into consideration and be updated in an Excel sheet. This Excel sheet can be sent as a mail to the faculty with the date of a So this is the use case diagram where the student opens into the registration activity. The student just has to enter the last 3 digits of their register number and their fingerprint to mark the attendance, and it will be automatically reset with the database and then proceeded to mark attendance in the Excel sheet. The main algorithm is minute extraction and comparison. It has 5 processes: fingerprint acquisition, where the fingerprint is actually taken from the fingerprint scanner into the application. It is just acquiring the fingerprint image, and the pre-processing requires the image to be turned into grayscale, where only black and white image pixels are available. The enhancement process will check whether the image is required to be done for the future. Ma'am, I'm hearing a noise, ma'am. Am I audible? Am I audible?
You're audible.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Fingerprint enhancement will check whether the image acquired is enough for the further process, and then each and every pixel will be black pixel will be turned as 0 and the white pixel will be turned as 1 for binarization. And finally, with the fourth process of feature extraction, each and every zeros and ones will be considered based on their pixel location and be converted into a byte number using the formula cross number generation. And every byte number will be combined together to form the byte array. So we are not using the actual image and we are converting into a byte array. And for the final comparison purpose, 2 byte arrays will be compared, and it generates a score of how similar the byte arrays are. So corresponding matching score, here the high level of security is being considered, which is 100. So if the similarity score is 100, it's considered that the fingerprint match, and anything below that is rejected. And for the evaluations, the attendance system overcomes the problems faced in the traditional system, and it reduces the involvement of faculty being taking attendance and gives the freedom for the students to mark themselves present. And it is also time mapped so that the students don't have to enter any other details other than the register number. Based on their timetable, or automatically the attendance will be marked for each and every respective class. And it also has time restrictions where the students will be informed that the attendance has been closed beyond the specific time. And the use of fingerprint has made sure that the attendance is only marked by the specific person and not by any friends or proxy attendance. And the algorithm has shown 100% accuracy over various software testing. And here we have implemented using a real-time database where the data can be transmitted from the application to the server, to the database without a server. So there is no server downtime. And as I told, the sensitive information of the fingerprint is not stored in the database and is being encoded into a byte array. So even if there is a data leak or breach, no sensitive information will be lost. And finally, for the result, it's the whole attendance list has been easily sent as a mail to the respective faculty through our application itself. In conclusion, I would say that the system has been successfully implemented, and it almost has all the advantages and reduces most of the disadvantages discussed in the related work. And it also not only provides a solution to the problem, but also implements a lot of other features which help the students, and it's both convenient for the students and the faculty members to use in the class. In future, there can be enhancement of using more than one fingerprint, and a backup method to mark attendance can also be used. And a master plugin will also be implemented where if there's any confusion, it can be rectified. And OD forms can also be submitted through this application in future. Reported bug feature will be added. These are the references. And this is a screenshot of the application where this is registration, where the student enters all the details, number, and then enrolls the fingerprint over here. And this will be successfully registered. And this is for the using daily attendance part where these information will already be present. The user will only enter the last 3 digits and then scan the fingerprint. And once they submit, it will say, it will acknowledge the user and you can mark present. And once the attendance is marked, it will be in the form of this Excel sheet where all the attendance will be registered, and just by clicking this mail button, it will be sent as the attachment to the mail to the faculty. And Yeah. Yes, and this is the picture of the database where the real-time database, every node has been stored, the data has been stored in every node in the form of a table. And thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for listening.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Shaktivel.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the fingerprint, what you said, can you please clarify on this that each student, where does he enter his fingerprint?
Yes, ma'am. So the fingerprint is not registered using the student's mobile. The faculty or the management can provide a mobile where the fingerprint of every student will be registered only once in the whole 4 years.
So this mobile has to be with the staff member, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and each student has to enter into the enter the fingerprint into the staff mobile, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah, and how is it different from your time consumption, as you said, as your manual and your fingerprint? I
yes,
think instead of this fingerprint register, you have to enter your registration number, right? And your fingerprint. See, your teacher comes into class for a 1 hour class, and calling out the roll numbers manually, I think it's easier when compared to giving a fingerprint into the staff mobile.
Yes, ma'am. In case of time consumption, the faculty will consume about 5 to 7 minutes of their time. But in case of this method, the student can register them in about 5 seconds. Only the last 3 digits and the fingerprints will be recorded, which takes about 5 seconds for every student. So as they enter the class, they can just enter them and go to the class where the student, faculty can continue with the class.
See, now the latest one which we has been developed is taking a photograph of the whole class, biometric attendance using your photographs.
Okay, ma'am.
Can you? That latest one has developed. Latest one has been developed.
Yes, ma'am.
So in that case, I don't think there is any advantage in your fingerprint system. Can you comment on that? Substantiate on that point?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. In case of your photograph, it's a mobile use or a CCTV camera?
It's a mobile or the CCTV camera, anything.
Okay.
CCTV camera, if you have a CC camera, what happens is directly it goes to the management system and automatically take up the, it does not take up any time consumption. The teacher can start on the class as well as the students can listen to the class, right?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. This is I have also explained this in the related work. It is a very methodology which has been implemented. But considering a CCTV, it costs about 10,000 for one system, along with the hardware and implementation. So implementing each and every class with a CCTV will be very costly method. If the university is okay with it, it will be definitely better. But this is a totally portable system and just an application that can be implemented in any smartphone. So there is no requirement of any hardware needed. Any people who have a smartphone can just use it. So I have considered the cost efficient part.
Cost efficiency you have considered. Okay. Accuracy also, you compared any accuracy of this system, of your system?
Yes, ma'am. I have considered. I have tested with unit testing, integration, regression, smoke, and interface testing, where it is stored 100% accuracy, and whichever user, even with any other orientation, they keep the same fingerprint, it's showing accurate results, and it's not accepting any other fingerprint which is skipped. So the testing has been done, it's 100% accurate.
Okay, do you have any screenshots of the experiments which you have conducted?
I do have screenshots, but it's not like an experiment. Like the regression testing will be implementing will be running of the code again with different fingerprints. So in case of unit testing, it will be again integrating the minimum test which has been done. So I can show you a screenshot.
In which platform have you developed this?
Android Studio, ma'am.
Android Studio.
Only Java.
Okay.
Just 1 second, I can show you the screenshot. Yes, ma'am, I'll share it now.
Yeah.
Is it visible, ma'am?
No. Yes.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. So this is the same fingerprint which is kept in different orientation, and the intensity of the second fingerprint is lesser than the first one, but it's still considered because of the image enhancement process which I have done, and it says it's matched. And in case of another fingerprint with different orientation, it says it's not matched. There has been different tests which have been done during the development time. So the screenshot will also offer every process will look the same, but the different implementation of the testing is different as per the development time.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Shakti.
Thank you.
Okay, so with this, we come to an end of our paper presentation. All the five participants have presented the papers along with the professors. So may I now request a session chair, Dr. Mridula ma'am, to select, as decided, to select one best paper which can be nominated for the best paper award from the session.
Yes.
Yeah, please give your suggestions and then select. Can you just nominate one from the five?
The image captioning using IND-RNN.
Okay, I think that was the third team from Delhi Technological University.
Yeah.
Are
So
they
people,
here?
they have.
Okay. Shubham Verma, Sukriti Rampal, Sparsh Gupta, along with the professor Dr. Dinesh Kumar. Are they here?
Ma'am, I am Sparsh.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am, please. Mridula ma'am.
Yeah. The thing what they have done is they have some innovation in them, and they have more gone into the practical applications. So I find that paper and the presentation done by Subhang Verma, he had the confidence that what he has been working on is clear in his presentation, right?
Okay.
And anything else to be said, Golda ma'am?
That's it, ma'am. I wanted, nomination for Best Paper Award. Okay, thank you. And congratulations to team from Delhi Technological University, and congratulations to all the other participants.
Thank
so
you so
now,
much.
as we come to the end of this session, first of all, I would like to extend my special thanks to the session chair, Dr. Mridula Madam, professor from MES College of Engineering, for her time and effort for joining us in this particular session, for being our session chair, releasing the souvenir flip book, and also for judging the presentation and giving all positive comments for each and every session. Then I also congratulate all the authors who have taken their effort in presenting their ideas, and also their professors who has made it happen. So thanks to all of you once again. So can we have a photo session? Unfortunately, our HOD ma'am who wanted to join us is now engaged in a HOD meeting right now, so she's unable to join us. But then I would like to have a photo session with all the existing participants, a live video photo session. Can we have all the participants live? Can you share your pictures, please? Shaktivel, can you coordinate? Hello? Yeah.
I'm sharing now.
Karthikayani, madam? Are you there, Karthikayani, madam? Hello? Hello. Hello. How do we go for a frame photo of all the participants? Can we have some idea, please? Okay. Kartikayani madam, are you there? Yeah. So we have only 13 participants now, and of the 13, many are still in their, not with their video mode. If you could, the other participants could show their faces, it would be good. Yeah, fine. Your professors have left.
Is this okay?
Yeah,
Is this
this
okay?
is good.
For
There's one more person, I think. One more person supposed to join. Okay. Right. Okay, any more to join? Fine. Right. Just a second, one more click, please. Right. So thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Congratulations to everybody, and thanks to all for your wonderful cooperation, for being on time, presenting, and giving such a wonderful presentation along with your professors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mridula ma'am. I'll call
Thank
you
you.
back.
Thank you, Golda ma'am. I'll call you later.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.